Right, hello Year 10. I'm today going to be talking to you about controlling blood glucose. We're going to look at the hormones involved with controlling blood glucose, describe how these hormones keep the blood glucose levels constant, and look at how and why this is considered a negative feedback mechanism. So far, you've covered homeostasis, you've looked at the nervous system, you've been introduced to the endocrine, the hormonal system, and then we're going to carry on and look at a couple of systems controlled by hormones. Why is this relevant to your life? What are the links to careers? So dietitians need to know all about blood glucose levels. Also, you need to know about it in terms of keeping yourself healthy and understanding how your body can be stressed by eating too much sugar. Your liver will have to work too hard. Also, you may come across, there it says increasing diabetes in the UK. Next lesson you'll learn about diabetes. You may come across people with diabetes in your lifetime. Two of my closest friends are type 1 diabetics. And I've certainly had to learn about how to help them and manage them and make sure I know what's going on. So this could be the start of a very interesting couple of lessons for you. First of all, a quick recap from last lesson. Pause the video, have a go, see how many glands can you name from this picture. Hopefully you paused it and had a go, and if you got probably 4, I would say you're doing very well. 5 or 6, then really, really well. Okay, pituitary gland, you'll come across that a lot later in the next few lessons. The thyroid gland, quite difficult to remember that one. Okay, you have a Google Doc on your Google Classroom, and it has a table with some keywords typed into it already. You are going to write definitions for those. You don't have to do it now. I will tell you when to do it. We'll put some definitions up on the board, and I'd like you to type them out so in order to try and help you remember those. But first, I would like you to watch this video. If it doesn't open here, I've put the link in the Google Classroom for you to watch separately. It tells you and takes you through, and it does a better job than I would because it's able to use animation, okay, to show you, take you through it. But it will explain what is happening inside your body when you take sugar in, what happens to it, and when you exercise and you use up too much of your blood glucose and it falls too low. They'll mention some of the key terms that we were looking at here, okay? And after the video, I will talk through and try and explain it again as well. Okay, so hopefully you've watched that video and seen what happened with the two people. One who had the sugar and then just sat and read the magazine, the other one who got on the exercise bike. And what we're trying to understand is how this process is working inside of us. So I think one of the key things that you will need to understand is that glycogen is it's the animal equivalent of starch. So we find starch in potatoes, in anything with carbohydrates, bread, etc. And starch, if you didn't know, is a large molecule made up of glucose, very small glucose molecules all stuck together. And this makes it insoluble, so it can be stored inside the cell. It doesn't get used by the cell. And it's a good way of storing energy, okay? It's very easy to turn glycogen into glucose simply by snapping off a glucose and putting it into the blood. Likewise, it is very easy to take a glucose and add it to a glycogen molecule inside the liver. So what happens is your blood glucose wants to be kept. Your body has an optimum level concentration of glucose it wants in the blood. And if that glucose level rises, so say for instance you eat a Kit Kat bar, other chocolate bars are available. If you eat sugar, your blood glucose will rise because it will go through, be absorbed from your small intestine straight into your blood. That will be detected by the pancreas. So the pancreas detects this rise in blood glucose. It also then coordinates the response and releases the insulin. Okay, this is our hormone, our messenger. This insulin travels in the blood to the liver, and it causes the liver cells to take glucose out of the blood and store it as glycogen. In this way, the blood glucose levels fall, okay? And when they get back to the optimum amount, the pancreas stops releasing insulin. Likewise, if you do some strenuous exercise and you use up a lot of the blood glucose in your blood more quickly than you would normally, then that is also detected by the pancreas, and the response is coordinated by the pancreas. The pancreas releases glucagon. Okay, that glucagon again travels to the liver and tells the liver, gets the liver cells to start breaking off molecules of glucose and putting them into the blood. Okay, and in that way, the blood glucose levels rise. And again, the pancreas then stops releasing glucagon when blood glucose gets back up to where it needs to be. So it's a very clever, very efficient system and is working all the time. Okay, so I would get your definition sheet up on another tab, okay, and then you'll need to type out these definitions into the correct box. So glucagon, this is our hormone released from the pancreas that tells your liver to change glycogen into glucose. So it's going to rise, going to cause the glucose levels to rise in the blood. Insulin does the opposite. It's the hormone released from the pancreas that tells your body, your liver, to take glucose out of the blood and store it as glycogen. So it's going to cause glucose levels to fall. Glucose is this molecule that is used in respiration by every single cell in order to release energy for the cell to do what it needs to do. And glycogen, like we said, this is this storage molecule. It's a carbohydrate. It's made up of millions of glucose molecules all stuck together like Lego. And it's stored in the liver. Okay, so hopefully you've filled that in. If you haven't, then go back, pause the video, and use those definitions to type in the table on your Google Doc. Okie dokie. Now, we've talked about this. This is showing us here one example whereby a fall in blood sugar level is detected. The pancreas is the receptor, so it detects that, and it's the coordinator. It brings about its response, which is to release glucagon. That travels to our effector, which is our liver, which takes glycogen, and turns it into glucose and releases that into the blood. Okay, the opposite if our blood glucose rose. Okay, we would release insulin and we would take glucose out of the blood. So here, this you may have seen this sort of diagram before. This is showing exactly what we've just talked about. Why it's called negative feedback, it's maybe a bit confusing for some of you, but I will try and explain it. Okay, it's called a negative feedback system because when we get a change, so in this case, we've eaten something, our blood glucose rises, our feedback response is to cause the blood sugar levels to fall. So our response is in the opposite, or we could say the negative direction. If this is considered positive, this would be negative. But equally, if our blood glucose fell, okay, and just thinking of this as a moving from one point to another, we would consider this a positive change, okay, even though it is a fall, so the concentration is actually getting less. The response is in the negative, in the opposite direction, the negative direction to the initial change. So that is why it is called negative feedback, is because the response is always in the opposite direction to the initial change. Okay, so like we said, we were talking about this, saying how our blood glucose levels will rise and fall throughout the day. Pause the video now and try and think what events might cause your blood sugar levels to rise and what might cause it to fall. So hopefully you've had a think, and what might cause a rise in your blood sugar levels. Okay, that's primarily going to be taking in food. Yeah. So taking in a meal, and it could be that you eat your meal here, but you don't digest it and it doesn't get absorbed until here. It depends on the type of thing you eat. If you eat sweets, then your blood glucose is going to rise very quickly. Okay, if you eat carbohydrates, then they have to be broken down first, and then your blood glucose level will rise. So there's a bit of a delay. Okay, what's going to cause a fall? Okay, and some falls are larger than others. Generally, it's going to be exercise, but it could be things like if you, found yourself suddenly going from a warm environment to a cold environment, and you had to your body had to work harder to keep your body warmer. Okay, it could be that you are using your brain more. Your brain uses a huge amount of oxygen and glucose all the time. So thinking and being engaging with thought activities is similar to, or can have a similar effect to, exercise. And then strenuous exercise is going to cause a big drop quickly. Okay, but hopefully you can see that on average, your body manages to keep your blood glucose levels around about an optimum range or level. So hopefully you feel that we have covered these today. Go and have a go at answering the questions on the Google Doc and hand those into your teacher. And in that case, hopefully you found this an interesting lesson. And good luck with the stuff coming up. Okay, bye.